Welcome to the Level 1 Lounge, where we give our uneducated takes on everything and anything gaming related. It's time to boot up the system, and let's do that with our introductions. I, as always, am your host this week, the one, the only, the second Irish Bandit. And of course, I am always joined by my two co-hosts from Twitch, RiderPride639, and from the New Geek Corner over on Facebook, Agent Maverick86. Gentlemen, how you doing this week?
Yeah, we're doing pretty good now that I've gotten a couple of fiery beans out of into my system.
No, not doing too bad. I mean, surprise, doing a podcast. We said
Yeah.
that there wasn't going to be one this week, but
I put it
schedules
up
opened up and away we go.
I put it up on the YouTube channel community tabs. As stated in last week's episode, no show this week. Fool you, there's going to be a show this week, but that's
but not
okay.
next week.
But not next week.
Yeah,
That's what I was gonna
next
say.
week, yeah, nothing happening next week.
No show next week, but we're here this week. We're going to do it, and let's just get into it with our booting up segment. And this week's question for the esteemed panel of guests: what game did you buy spur of the moment that exceeded your expectations? Agent Maverick, let's start with you.
Okay, so one that actually came to mind that I kind of wanted to gush about, which is one of the reasons why I thought about this. Started watching The Rings of Power again recently, and it made me think of a particular game, but the Shadow of Mordor. I wasn't expecting anything from this game, and it is fantastic. It's one of the better games that I've played. I think it's still one of the best Lord of the Rings games that's actually out there. I would still argue that Return of the King was fantastic for its day, but this one was great. Everything in this game, everything that happened, you died, your death had a meaning, and something happened with the characters. Like your character was banished from death, so you couldn't actually die. So you get killed, the orc that killed you gets promoted, and you can start rivalries and fights between them, and balance out the power dynamic that's within these group of orcs. You can control orcs, you can have them fight for your side. Oh, it's such a great game. I had so much fun with it. At one point, I decided that it was one game that I had to add onto my platinum list, and I think I did that 2 or 3 years ago now. But it is on my list of platinums. Still trying to see about maybe doing Shadow of War at some point, but it's a lot more convoluted. There's a lot more happening in that one, so it's a little bit more. It's going to take a little bit more time. Of course, we all know what my backlog is like right now, so it doesn't make sense. But Shadow of Mordor, fantastic game, and it is yet another game of sad dads for Monster, because you started off by watching your wife and your kid get killed in front of you. Then you get killed and then brought back to life, and your wife and your son is still gone. So he's trying to get revenge for the death of his family. So another sad dad story.
What a joyful sounding game.
Seems to be an ongoing theme with the games that we play is nothing but sad dads.
Yeah.
Well, I guess over to me. I would have to say probably the one that really, as soon as I heard it was announced, Borderlands 2. The first one was a lot of fun. And the second one, as soon as I heard that it was being announced, it was great. Now, I also did the same thing to the third one. Unfortunately, the third one wasn't quite as good. Borderlands 2 was an unbelievably well put together game. Not just because you got a whole new set of characters to play with, but all of the old characters from the first game, like all the playable characters from the first game, became a part of the world of Pandora in the second game that you can talk to, whether it be Mordecai or Brick or there's a couple of others that I can't think of off the top of my head. Lilith would be another one, and the villain. Oh my good God, Handsome Jack has to be one of the most insidious and such well-designed villain, who's also voiced by a Canadian, I'd like to point out. Borderlands 2 was an absolutely fantastic game. I'm really, really hoping that Borderlands 4, when it comes out, is pretty good. But it's going to be really, really hard to top the hype and the successes of what Borderlands 2 brought to the table. Not only just for that genre, but for that franchise as well.
Good pick. I think for me, I had to really think about this one. What game did I pick up spur of the moment that kind of blew me away? It had to be a game I picked up for the Wii. Now, when you think Nintendo, you think happy, fun, family, little things. I picked up a game with so much blood and so much swearing in it. I was amused by it the whole time. It is the game Mad World. It was such a fun game, done in such an interesting art style too. It was like the graphic novel style, black and white, but left all the blood in. Had a great voice cast, including Steve Bloom, Greg Proops,
Nice.
Bender, John DiMaggio was in it as well. Great voice cast, great story. The gameplay was fun, whipping around the Wiimote and the nunchuck. Because the
Trying not to put it through your TV.
yeah, exactly. The main protagonist of the game has chainsaw arm, so that was pretty cool to have that. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with that game, and it was I loved every second of it. Even some of the mini games where you were taking the guys, holding them down, taking a golf club and whacking their heads off. Really fun.
It almost sounds like something out of the Evil Dead franchise.
A little bit,
Yeah, I was going
or
to
Last of Us.
say that kind of reminds me of the new zombie game that's been remastered. What was it?
Dead Island?
Pardon? No.
Was it Dead
I'll
Island?
get back to. No, it's not Dead
Oh.
Island.
Dead Island.
I'll
Dead
get
Island.
back to you
Dead
on
Island.
that, but
Dead Island.
it
Jackal.
was.
Yeah, was it
Jackal.
Jackal?
Yeah, I'm going to have to get back to you, and I can't believe I'm blanking on it. But oh yeah, I'll get back to you
I
on
think I know
that
which one
one.
you're talking about too. That's
Dead Island.
Yeah, it's going to drive me nuts. It's going to drive Dead Rising.
Dead
Oh,
Rising.
I was close. I was close.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Dead
Dead
Rising. Yeah, I can't believe I forgot about that because that one's actually going to be coming out here pretty quick too. So, and Monster was just talking to me about that one, and he's thinking about picking that one up. But yeah, it kind of sounds like Dead Rising, almost.
Yeah, but no zombies in it though. It's just you're running around like I can't remember. It has like a Escape from New York vibe to it, where
Hmm.
the a major city has been turned into like this ongoing game show of death and destruction. And and I think it's been a while since I played, but like a girl's been kidnapped too. So you have to go through all these games to try and save her. It was really fun though.
Yeah, it's almost
It
like
was
an
a fun game.
interesting mix of like Evil Dead, Escape from New York, and Running Man.
Yeah, a little bit. But yeah, really fun and blew away all my expectations because I didn't have any to be honest with you. So
That's
I,
usually when you find the best games,
oh
though.
yeah, exactly. When you go in with no expectations, you're never let down.
Yeah,
That's the way I find.
That's the way to game.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the way the game. That's the way to go into any movies. Talking to you, Star Wars fans.
Let's not open that can of worms.
Yeah, yeah. We'll close that can of worms and we'll just say we've booted up and we're going into level 1. So now it's time to get into the news, and we got to talk about this again. Let me scoot up a little more so I can read this. Microsoft to cut 650 more gaming jobs. Microsoft will lay off approximately 650 people from its gaming team. The company's head of gaming and Monster Hospital's dad, Phil Spencer, told employees in an email. As part of aligning our post-acquisition team structure and managing our businesses, we have made the decision to eliminate approximately 650 roles across Microsoft Gaming, mostly corporate and supportive functions to organize our business for long-term success, Spencer wrote. The majority of the cuts will impact people in these corporate and support roles at Activision Blizzard, according to a source familiar with the matter. This is the second round of major cuts at Microsoft Gaming division this year. In January, the company said it would be laying off 1,900 workers. I don't know where the X 9 workers across Xbox, uh, ZeniMax, Bethesda, and most heavily Activision Blizzard. We talk about this every week, and I honestly, I really don't see this coming to an end anytime soon. I would be surprised if in 2 weeks, I should say, if we don't talk about layoffs. But thoughts?
Yeah. And I mean, they're already projecting that another 1,900 jobs are coming, just after Christmas is
Oh,
done. So, I mean, 650 primarily across corporate and support functions. I'm not sure what the supporting functions are, entirely, but the fact that they're getting rid of, they're shedding wages up at the top is fine by me. These are a lot of the paper writers, pencil pushers, envelope lickers that generally they're not the ones with the boots in the studios. They're
Right.
not the ones developing the games. They're not the one creating the graphics pieces and things like that. But supporting functions, I mean, the chances are pretty good they're probably going to be needed. The corporate ones, technically speaking, are needed too. But I'm not terribly surprised or disappointed that uh they're cutting from that top part of the level.
Right.
My thoughts on this is quite similar, but I also have a different take, which is I believe that this is happening to kind of prevent a power struggle if they're removing people from the top of Activision and ZeniMax and Bethesda, because I mean, it's now Microsoft, right? It's Microsoft Gaming, right? So to have they can just say, "Hey, make these games, do the work here. These are the contracts that you guys have been offered. Just do the work." The support functions, speaking of from a member of a support team, is with my job. It sucks for them, but at the same time, and I feel for them. Um, but it may also be the same story. Microsoft may have their own internal support when it comes to this, right? So we don't know what their roles are in this case. And it comes down to it that they spent how much, what was it, like $74 billion in total between Bethesda and Activision Blizzard and all of these other companies in the last few years. They need to find ways of cutting costs because as of right now, those games that they're wanting to push out on multiple platforms, uh, they're not out yet. They need something to affect their bottom line now, unfortunately. So I think it's going to prevent a bit of a power struggle. And I think it also kind of amalgamates everybody into the support role and giving that support responsibilities internally into Microsoft. So I'm not shocked. And I don't think that this is a terrible move. It sucks that we're talking about layoffs again, and I'm anticipating that we're going to be having this conversation very soon, unfortunately, about Ubisoft, because Ubisoft's stocks are continuing to plummet, which is a completely different story for another time. But yes, this is going to continue to happen, and I think in this case, it's it's going to end up working out better for them in the long run, as much as this sucks.
Yeah, I gave my thoughts on it. We're still talking about it. I don't see job layoffs happening anytime soon. But like you guys said, from starting at the top, maybe that's not such a bad thing. So let's move on to our next story. That Annapura's entire gaming team has resigned. Annapura Interactive's entire gaming staff has resigned from the company following a leadership dispute, according to a Bloomberg report. The report, which IGN can confirm based on conversations with our own sources, states that Annapura Interactive president Nathan Gary had recently been in negotiations with Annapura founder and billionaire Megan Ellison to sign the gaming segment of its own company. However, Ellison eventually pulled out of negotiations, at which point Gary resigned. Almost 30 other individuals, including division co-heads Deborah Mars and Nathan uh, Balea, as well as the entire remaining staff of Annapura Interactive, joined him. All 25 members of the Annapura Interactive team collectively resigned. Gary and the resigned staff said in a joint statement to this was one of the hardest decisions we ever had to make, and we did not take this action lightly. While negotiations are still ongoing, Annapura Interactive announced it had rehired former Epic Games executive Hector Sanchez as its president of Interactive and New Media, and Paul Doyle as its head of strategy. It is likely that Sanchez was expected to head up Annapura's gaming efforts in Gary's absence once his part of the company was spun off. With Gary now having resigned, Sanchez has taken the lead. As Bloomberg reports, Sanchez has spoken with partner developers this week to reassure them that Annapura will continue its existing contracts and replace departed staff. A spokesman for Annapura, spokesperson, sorry, Annapurna confirmed to IGN that this plan will include both backfiling certain roles and also partnering with third parties to fill gaps as needed. Wow.
I.e.,
was
we want doormats. Let's hire doormats. They're people
Yeah.
that are actually going to want to do what we tell them when we tell them to do it. And I mean, good for them for having a backbone to make that decision to walk out.
Mhm.
If you're in a position with a job that you're not going to be proud of the work that you're doing, don't stay. And I mean, it's a very, very tough decision. And they've actually made some decent games. I've played Stray. I've played What Happened to Edith Finch. Great games. Brilliant in some cases. And I mean, if they're going to be overhauling and changing their identity, it makes total sense on why they ended. All these people walked away. Backfilling, it's going to happen, but yeah, it's going to end up coming down to we want doormats, people that are going to listen and do what we tell them.
Yes, man.
And well, I mean, if they need to backfill, hey, look at that! 650 roles at Microsoft Gaming just got cut. So, maybe they're gonna be looking for work. Who knows? Yeah, it's
Always look on the bright side of
yeah,
life.
exactly. Yeah, no, I echo exactly what Maverick said there. If you're not happy with what you're doing, get out and go find something else. I mean, unless you're under contract, which chances are pretty good if you're up at the kind of in the the upper echelon uh of the company hierarchy. Chances are pretty good you're not under contract for anything. So yeah, there's literally nothing stopping you from just saying, you know what, to heck with this crap, I'm out of here. Take your stuff and walk out. So good on them for standing by their convictions, standing by their beliefs,
Absolutely.
and standing by their pride type of thing too. Hopefully they will find some new work. Again, we're kind of in this, we're kind of back into this cycle of there's a whole bunch of people without jobs right now. It might be time to pull a Poland and start start building some new gaming companies across Canada and the U.S. and just get back to doing what they do best, and that is making games.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's move on to our next news story, and it is that Sony is reportedly picking up AMD over Intel for the PlayStation 6. What's next after the PlayStation 5 Pro? A report from Reuters focuses on Sony's plans beyond this fall's new $700 system, $1,000 in Canada, if you add the disk drive and the stand, saying that the battle to win the contract for chip powering future PlayStation 6 came down to AMD versus Intel, with others like Broadcom eliminated earlier, with AMD eventually winning out. According to Reuters, since AMD makes a chip in the PS5 and PS5 Pro, maintaining backwards compatibility is a possible move. In a possible move, was part of months of discussions in 2022 between executives and engineers at Sony and Intel. However, Intel's bid was blocked because they couldn't agree on how much profit Intel would make each chip it would design, as Taiwan Semiconductor's manufacturing company, TSMC, handled the manufacturing process. Now, Ryder, before we started recording, you said that you were happy that AMD was picking up the contract for the PS6. What are
Absolutely.
your thoughts on this?
I am an AMD fanboy. I have an AMD chipset in my current computer right now. It has done admirably well over the years. They still continue to get support upgrades and things like that for it. So to have the new AMD chipsets that they've announced recently, given what they're capable of, especially with AI-driven technology now being built directly into the chip and not requiring a completely different set of processors and subsets, is absolutely wonderful. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of specs that they're going to come up with the PlayStation 6, and also see if they're going to be able to integrate some new AI features or AI based features and software into the system in its release. So Intel's good. I still believe they still technically hold the majority of the market share, but every month, every year, AMD has slowly been chipping away into that lead more and more.
Yep.
Not just with their not just their their processor line, but with their graphics line as well. They're starting to chip away into Nvidia's lead, where Nvidia's kind of the leader in graphics, but AMD is starting to make a push there too. So yeah, absolutely, I am 100% happy that AMD is going to be continuing on with the PlayStation 6.
Maverick, what about you?
So I won't have anything to say in regards to the technical aspect, especially since Ryder's the one that kind of has a little bit more expertise in that field.
Absolutely.
But what I will talk to, first of all, I have an educational patch that I feel that this is probably the perfect place to do. Last week, we were talking about the PlayStation 5 being available for refurbished for 50% off of the regular price of the system. That's incorrect. What it is 50% of the price of the PlayStation 5 Pro. So there's a huge difference with that price. Of course, we're talking in Canada, approximately $1,000. So looking at about $550 probably for those refurbished ones. Perfect place to actually bring that up. But I want to talk about is the backwards compatibility. I had discussions with people online thinking, oh, well, backwards compatibility means PlayStation 1, 2, and 3.
No.
No, you're going to be looking at PlayStation 4, 5, and 6. That's what you're going to be looking at. And I hate to say this, I'd love to be able to play the PlayStation 1 games on the PlayStation 6. And PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3 games, sure, great. There's a lot of great games on that. But you want to play those games, you have the systems already available that have the capabilities of playing those games. Play them on the original systems. Sorry. We don't need backwards compatibility that far. The idea of the PlayStation 4, 5, and 6, these games are not really that old, and it's not going to be that much of a stretch to be able to have that support to be able to do that and have the software to be able to do it. So, and for me, I don't really care if it's going to be backwards compatible. I have my 5 that's backwards compatible with the 4, and I'll still have my PlayStation 5 for PlayStation 5 games. And it's going to be a little while, at least, for the PlayStation 6 to be able to come out. But we don't need backwards compatibility that far. Sorry, guys, it's not going to happen. But I think people will be happy enough that PlayStation 4 on will be will be available, though, at least on the PS6.
Yeah. The only thing I could possibly see if they wanted to go that far, it's entirely possible, especially with the prevalence of AI on the chip. So with AMD's new chip, I'm wondering, I'm not saying that this is ever going to happen, but if they ever were to think about it, they could potentially use the AI functions on the chip to act as an emulator in order to allow for backwards compatibility as far back as the PS1, 2, and 3. Because technically PCs do it right now. There's actually a client called Good Old Games that you can get where you can play a lot of these classic, like 1993 DOS-based games that basically runs on a self-contained emulator program in order for it to be able to run in a specific environment, so that way you can actually, play it on your current systems. But like I said, there's a lot of variables that go into that.
I do have an argument for that though as well. PlayStation Plus Premium, you have cloud gaming with PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3 games. You take that away, there's no reason for anyone to be able to go with that subscription. Like,
Unless you make the games only available through PlayStation Premium.
That's the thing. Those games, those games that are cloud based, the PlayStation 1, 2, and 3 games, they're only available for premium. They're not available for extra.
Right. So I mean, I guess the only advantage then to having them locally on the system would be you don't have to deal with like cloud delay or whatever.
Sure, but we're gonna have improved technology, and things are always going to get better when it comes to connection and cloud gaming. We all know that's the direction it's going to end up going. There is zero reason for them not to be able to improve that technology, to not be able to offer that subscription later on. It's going to come down to money. They're going to make way more money by keeping it behind that lock system.
You're absolutely right. It all comes down to, but
Yep.
that's understandable in this kind of market. So, all right, let's move on to our next news story. Continue on with the PS5. After a PS5 console update is causing major problems for Final Fantasy XVI. Sony's most recent PS5 update added several new features, including a welcome hub that displays the remaining battery life for connected PS5 peripherals like controllers, available storage space, and online friends, among other useful information. Other new additions include personalized 3D audio profiles that are optimized to each user, uh, pre-profile, remote play settings, and the ability to share party access links with players who wish to join an online session. The latest PS5 console update is causing some unprecedented crashes and graphical issues for Final Fantasy XVI. Ever since the September 2024 PlayStation 5 firmware update went live a few days ago, Final Fantasy XVI players have been reporting sudden game crashes and graphics-related issues. The official Final Fantasy XVI Twitter account recently addressed these, sharing those affected that the development team is checking out the situation and apologizing for any inconvenience it might have caused. Ryder, you were saying earlier you're glad you platinumed it already, so you
I
have
haven't
to.
played. I haven't played the DLC though,
Haven't played the
so
DLC yet, but
I mean, now that I see this, I can probably hold off for a little while
yeah.
until those particular updates are fixed. Yeah, damn, that sucks. Raise your hand if you've ever seen an update not break a game in the last 20 years.
No.
Yeah, liar. Yeah, this is it sucks. It really, really sucks. Hopefully they do get it fixed right away. But yeah, no, unfortunately we live in a world where not just with live service games, but even games like this where updates occur, you try it in a dev environment, everything seems to be working fine, you push it to a live environment, and all of a sudden something breaks. I mean, I work in the technological field. Mav, you work in the technological field in the past. We have seen it time and time again where they build an update, they test the ever living hell out of it, it passes QA, it goes to live, and something catastrophic happens. Like I said, I wish it wasn't a real thing, but
But it is.
yeah, it is.
I see that in my job constantly, actually, with my role. But I shouldn't say constantly. It's happened a lot. But yes, unfortunately, it does happen. In regards to the that new hub and that new layout, it's not available in Canada at least yet. So I mean, we have a saving grace. So right now, if you were to play it in Canada, you're likely okay. But as soon as that update happens, I'd be considering deleting it off your system for a little while, at least, anyways. I don't think it's going to take them long to patch this.
No, I don't think so.
I would, I think I'd be happy to say that I'm going to be keeping an eye on the situation. So go check out the new Geek Corner, and I'll let you guys know when I've got that post up, and let you guys know when that's actually done. But at this point, yeah, it sucks. It's awful. But this update for PlayStation hasn't been rolled out everywhere yet. I'm excited to actually get my hands on that update. And Final Fantasy 16 is not on my list of games to be replaying anytime soon, anyways. So, but yeah, I feel for the people that are going through this, and I'm sure that Square is going to be able to get this taken care of in no time.
Yeah, I think so. They'll get it taken care of, and all will be well for now.
Yeah, until the next update breaks it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that. All right, moving on to our next news story. Rumor insider hints at game-changing Nintendo Switch 2 feature. The Nintendo Switch 2 might feature two screens, as recently suggested by a well-known industry insider, as well as a separate report from Taiwan. Though this isn't the first time the possibility of dual-screen Switch successor was brought up, prior reports about the unannounced console's design have been inconsistent. The old indication of Nintendo possibly working on another dual screen device dates back to April 2020 when a secret researcher dug up some references to such product in the 10 firmware update of Switch. Nintendo subsequently patented a dual screen device that can be split in half in late 2023. Nintendo Switch DS, let's go. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. I was just gonna say it's a new DS.
Exactly. It's bigger, but
Bigger, newer, more powerful, more features,
yep.
more games that you don't have to constantly load various cartridges into. Um, yeah, I mean, what more there is there to say about it? I mean, we're seeing it with phones. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember if it was one of our particular group. It might have been Chewy at one point that maybe had like one of the, was it like the Samsung Galaxy Flip Z or something like that?
I think he had the fold,
Yeah, the
but
fold.
I
Yeah, that's the
don't
one.
think. Yeah, I don't think he held on to that one very long though, if memory serves, because I remember talking to him a little while later, and he had switched back to Apple. Um, I think that this is a great move, considering I think that this is another way of making games backwards compatible, like the system backwards compatible for Nintendo DS again, because I'm not sure if that's playable at this point, the Switch, to be honest. So I'm not really familiar with that technology when it comes to that. But I mean, it's going to be a good move, I think. And Nintendo's always, and this is the one thing it's been a long time since I've had a Nintendo system. I think since the GameCube. But I will say
Classic.
that they've always have found a way to be innovative and
Oh yeah.
creative and find a way to do things different in this changing market. Xbox, PlayStation, you know exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get a console that sits in your living room. You even know the design of the controllers that you're going to get in that case. PlayStation's never going to change that design. Xbox is never going to change that design. Nintendo, you never know what you're going to get. You
Yeah,
could be getting
exactly.
the Wii remote. You could be getting, the way the setup is with the Switch, the controllers, and being able to play on the go. You never know. I'm excited to see what they do, and I will likely be looking at picking one up here when it does come out next year.
Yeah, I think I'll be looking at one too. There's a lot of good games on the Switch. There's a lot of good party games on the Switch. But yeah, when you were mentioning that Nintendo DS thing, the first thing that popped into my head, if they're gonna bring it back, I will be all over this. Uh, Pokemon Black and White, and we
Oh,
know we've heard me talk about this on the podcast previously. Yeah, you give me that game. You make sure that game is announced as being available on that new Switch with the dual screens and whatnot. I will happily throw my wallet at you.
take it.
The only Pokemon game I've ever played was Red and Blue. So
Try Black and White. I think you'd like it.
it's been a minute since I've played.
I've watched the series.
Hey, the series was good too.
Yes, yes. The original series.
Yes.
It's still going to this very day. I'm so happy Ash finally won the Pokemon League. But anyway, let's move. And our next story. Speaking of backwards compatibility issues, Xbox is working on some backwards compatibility issues. The August update for Xbox implemented a few new features such as support for the Amazon Fire TV stick, but it also has introduced a few problems to Xbox One and Series XS. Not only do gamers have issues with playing multiplayer games such as Fortnite and Call of Duty for a while, but some people notice a bug related to backwards compatibility. The issue occurred when games tried to use backwards compatibility on Xbox 360 and original Xbox discs on their consoles, which would not be recognized. And the players would get a message that there was a problem getting this content. Fortunately, it seems that these problems have been solved for some people. A recent report from Xbox Insider indicates that the glitch has been fixed. However, some gamers still seem to be unable to play these games, as multiple players have shared their troubles on social media, even after Xbox insiders revealed the implementation of this fix. At the time, it remains to be seen when the problem with Xbox backward compatibility will be fully corrected for all gamers. My eyes do not want to work today. Anyway, thoughts?
Didn't we just have a discussion about 5 minutes ago saying, hey, an update done broke something? Yeah, we're here again. This is how little I've touched the Xbox. I had no idea you could play Xbox 360 disc games on your Xbox
Yes, you
Series
can.
XS or Series X.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say Series S.
No.
But yeah, no, I had no idea that you could actually do that with your old 360 games.
I haven't tried it on the. I haven't played a full game yet. With the Xbox 360 games, but I did actually pick one up a few months ago. For those that don't know, there are a few things behind me that's giving it away. I am a huge DC fan, and I will argue that one of the best superhero games that are out there is the Arkham series. One of the games that came out was Arkham Origins, which took place 20 years before Arkham Asylum. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that didn't care for it. I didn't mind the game. I enjoyed it. It's just another Batman story. I will take everything you give me. I picked that one up. I played it a bit. It worked in my system. Yes, it's backwards compatible. Xbox has been backwards compatible with every system. You get an Xbox Series X, you're able to play the 360, the Xbox One, and the original Xbox games on that console. One of the reasons why I was happy to get that system, because I know I kind of contradicting myself a little bit talking about PlayStation here earlier, but that's always been a big focus on Xbox. They've never veered away from that. So for me, I was able to pick that game up and be able to replay it. I mean, I would have had no problem picking up a 360 at some point to be able to do that, but that's a focus that Xbox has had. To see that it's broken, I don't think that a lot of people are going to really notice it though, because as I said, a lot of people are focusing on newer games. There's not a whole lot of people, I think, that are going back to replay those older games that they're downloading. Like they can download from Game Pass the 360 games and some of the original Xbox games. Outside of the games that are on Game Pass, I don't know what the numbers actually are, but I can't see a whole lot of people going back to those really older games anyways. And Microsoft is going to be good at fixing this issue. Like they've already implemented a fix apparently. I'm hoping that works, and the people that are still experiencing this issue, maybe the update just isn't downloaded for them yet. So we all know how things work. Updates roll out, people sometimes just don't download the updates.
Right.
And I'm sure, Ryder, you're very familiar with that too. Hey, I had this problem. Download the update. Just do it, and it'll work.
Or what's even worse is when you tell somebody going, when was the last time you rebooted your system? Well, I rebooted it before I called you. And then you go look into their system, you see their system uptime is 437 days. Little sus.
That's actually really dangerous because, okay, so I, just a side note, because it's funny. When somebody heard reboot with one of my old jobs, they took steel toe boots and physically kicked their PC and dented the case. They kicked it so hard.
Talk about a reboot.
So very, very, you got to be very, very careful with your words. But in this case, I think Microsoft will make sure that the updates rolled out quickly. For anyone that's still experiencing the issue, I'm going to say just take a look to see if there's any updates that are available. And I think that would likely solve the issue anyways. But yeah, it's a shame, but I'm sure it's been fixed.
Yeah. And I mean, as long as they push it out to the maybe they have to like reprioritize it. Maybe it's classified as like a recommended or important update. Maybe they need to reclassify it as a critical update to make sure that these systems basically grab these updates whenever they can, regardless of whether or not you're on the system.
And whenever I hear reboot, I hear I am from the net. Going on, reboot. On to our next story, and I think we've talked about this in the past, but it's worth talking about again that the PS5 is entering the later stages of its life cycle, Sony says. Sony announced its third quarter earnings on February 14th, and they weren't exactly full of glad tidings for PlayStation fans. For starters, the company revealed it doesn't plan to release any new titles in its major franchises for the remainder of Sony execs also said that its current gen hardware, the PlayStation 5, is nearing its end of life cycle. According to Bloomberg's coverage of the call, the company predicts PlayStation 5 sales will slow in the next fiscal year. That means from April 2024 to March 5. Looking ahead, PS5 will enter the later stages of its life cycle. Sony SVP Naomi Matsuko said, as such, we will put more emphasis on the balance between profitability and sales. For this reason, we expect the annual sales pace of PlayStation 5 hardware will start falling from the next fiscal year. Now, I'm pretty sure we've talked about this in the past that the PS5 was nearing its end of life cycle, but I think we're all seeing it coming with discussion of the PlayStation 6. So, what are your thoughts? Let's start with Maverick.
So when they say it's near on the latter stages of its life, it doesn't mean the end. What it means is the back half.
Right.
PlayStation 5 Pro is always the Pro version's always been the refresh, which is always the mid cycle of the console. So now that the PlayStation 5 Pro is going to be coming out, we're starting to get to the back half of the PlayStation 5 release. This does not mean that the system is going to be going anywhere anytime soon. I am going to actually correct what I said. I think I said a few weeks ago that I was expecting the PlayStation 6 to be released in 2026. I'm going to say I'm going to actually go out and say my prediction is 2028. Maybe 2027. That still gives that few years life cycle for the PlayStation 5 Pro. But I'm also going to say this. You know what would also increase your sales? Not charging $1,000 for the refresh system.
Yeah, exactly.
And I did actually do some digging, and I brought it up to you guys privately. And I can't believe I'm going to defend Sony just a little bit here, and I know I'm going to hear the end of it from Monster, and I
Sony
know
pony.
I might get a tongue lashing here, but I'm going to say it. If you account for inflation, the PlayStation 5 Pro is not the most PlayStation that's ever been on the market. That award still goes to the PlayStation 3 at the time of launch. Now, here, when it comes down to it, there is, I'm sure that Ryder can back me up. There's improved graphics. There's improved CPU usage. It is making the $200 extra worth it. But before I say anything, if you're looking at that tech demo and you're saying, these upgrades, I'm not noticing a difference, then that system's not for you. Don't buy it. Okay? If you're going to go and you want bragging rights to say, well, I got a PlayStation 5 Pro, good for you. My Slim's going to work just fine. I did notice the difference. I'm not going to be rushing out and getting the new system just for that 4K 60 FPS. I'm okay with what I've got. And I'm sure that there's a few people that are out there like me in regards to that. But to this point, the PlayStation 5 Pro is coming out. This does not mean that it's at the end of its life cycle. It's just the back half.
Right.
Yeah, no, I agree with that too. And same thing. Like I do plan on upgrading to a PS5 Pro, but not because I need the latest and greatest. I need the upgraded graphics. I did notice a bit of a difference, but my primary reasoning for upgrading is because I want to be able to refresh the warranty. Now that this one has expired, if something were to break down on it, I'm not going to be able to. I could potentially afford to fix it, but at what stage does it come to a point where it's like, okay, do I fix it or do I just spend a couple $100 more and go get a brand new one? So, that's the reason why I would like to upgrade in the future. But yeah, and yeah, I totally agree with what Mav says. I'm kind of predicting that same timeline. If we're lucky, or if they really kind of push the timeline a little bit, I'd say 2027 is when we'll see the PS6. But I think conservatively, we'll probably be looking at 2028 for a release date for that. So we've still got a lot of good years to go with PlayStation. Now they did say that like they're not going to release any new titles in the major franchises for this year, That doesn't mean they're not going to do it next year or in 2026. So
Exactly. Exactly.
What I'm hoping for is that we're going to get some announcements for what's coming in 2025 during the State of Play next week. Just a peek at some of the games that are coming up. I got a rant about another one that's going to be coming up. I put it in our script here. I will get to that in a little bit, but I think we're going to be hopefully seeing some games and some ideas that they have coming up, at least next year. And they did have some decent exclusives. They just weren't first party. I mean, or sorry, they're not additions to any current franchises. We still had Helldivers, Rise of the Ronin came out, Stellar Blade. All of these were, well, Rise of the Ronin left a little bit to be desired, but Stellar Blade and Helldivers was fantastic. So I mean, there's still a lot there. Black Myth Wukong is a PlayStation 5 and PC exclusive. That's going to get a Game of the Year nomination. In fact, I'm thinking it might actually win Game of the Year now this year. So there's a lot behind it when it comes to Sony, but yeah, I think we're gonna hopefully see some more info next week.
Yep, hopefully soon too. And you know what? And we might even see some more at the Game Awards when it comes out too. Obviously, like that's a really good platform for not just for Sony but for everybody, like all the other developers and platforms to make a few announcements in between each of the
I don't
awards.
think you're ever going to see them at those events again.
What do you mean?
I think you're going to see state of plays. I think you're going to see state of plays in Sony showcases. I do not think Sony will ever show up to a Game Awards
No, but their developers will.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. I'm not sure.
I should say the developers that are making games that are on the PlayStation, not necessarily specifically Sony developers.
Right.
Sorry, I should have clarified that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. No, but Sony, I don't think will ever make an appearance for their first party sequels that are going to be coming out. The franchises that exist, we'll never see it at those events.
All right, moving on to the next news story. Square Enix says Final Fantasy XVI and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth didn't meet sales expectations. We didn't see this one coming. Within the past 2 years, Final Fantasy fans have been treated to 2 major releases in the franchise that were met with critical acclaim. But according to Square Enix, Final Fantasy XVI and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth have failed to meet the company's sales expectations. Square Enix disclosed the disappointing results during a financial results briefing in May. But the company only released the information today. No sales figures for the games provided, nor did the report state how far away the two titles were from Square Enix's projections. Square Enix president and representative director Takashi Kiru suggested that there may have been cannibalization between our own titles that led to the result. Final Fantasy XVI was released in June of 2023, while Final Fantasy VII Rebirth followed only 8 months later in February of 2024. Both titles fell within the same fiscal year of Square Enix, which came to an end in March. It's also possible that the two Final Fantasy games were at a disadvantage because they were solely available on PlayStation 5. Final Fantasy XVI was only released on PC earlier this week, while Final Fantasy VII Rebirth remains a PlayStation exclusive now. Even though technically we should say that the exclusivity has run out, but there isn't an easy solution for this problem, especially since fans and critics alike seem to be very receptive to both titles. Without seeing the actual numbers, it's difficult to determine how bad the issue really is, Kiru indicated. Kiru indicated that the company will be curtailing our pipeline over the next 3 years, or curating our pipeline, presumably to prevent any future cannibalization sales. He also promised to continue working to improve Square Enix's profitability. I think we've said it before, and we've said it a million times, exclusivity is what's hurting them. So you need to get it out on as many different platforms as possible, even if it's just PS5 and PC, because you're bringing in a whole different set PC crowd.
Yeah, and like the article just said, like there isn't an easy solution for this problem. Yes, there is. Get it on other systems. Open your sales base to other platforms. Maybe Nintendo Switch maybe isn't exactly the the best example to try and put it on, simply because the graphics capabilities aren't quite as good. But I mean,
Look at you, Mortal Kombat 1.
yeah, exactly. That was rough. Yeah, no, and that's pretty much what it's going to boil down to. Is if you want to improve your profitability, get it on all systems.
Yep.
I mean, I wish I could say that. I wish that we would kind of buck this trend of new AAA titles coming out at $100 to start with before you start getting into like the special editions, Gold Edition, Ultimate Edition, Super High Performance, Ultimate, Omega, Gamma Edition. You get into that crazy stuff there, but. Yeah, I mean, what more is there to say? I mean, they were kind of at a disadvantage because they were releasing so close to each other, but ultimately it boils down to the exclusivity hurt them. That's pretty much all there is to it.
Yeah, and there was so much.
I think what's hurt them is them not wanting to work with Microsoft when it comes down to releasing it on Xbox. But I couldn't help it, but I was just looking up at some of the games that were announced here in the last few years with Square, and I'm not seeing a lot of these games on Xbox. Final Fantasy VII Reunion, and that's Visions of Mana, and Dragon Quest. Now they're going to start incorporating some of the games here on Xbox now. And I think that will help them, but we also have to face facts. Square has always set unreal expectations when it comes to sales.
Yeah.
They're notorious for that. But their games are well received. I still argue that Valkyrie Elysium was one of the better games I played in 2022 when it was released. I had a lot of fun with it. The combat was fantastic. And the Final Fantasy series is great. 16 was good. I didn't mind the gameplay. I didn't mind the story. But when it comes to standard enemies, I found it to be boring because I didn't feel that there was a lot of threat basically when it came
to slog. It was a slog.
Yeah. Not saying it's not a good game, but the thing is, those boss fights made up for it. But I'd like to have a little bit more challenge for enemies. And this is me that's saying it. I struggle still with with the Souls-like games. But
go play Elden Ring.
But the thing is, all the games that they have on that have come out the last few years, they're good. They're always competing with something else. I do think that they have a shot at Game of the Year with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
No question.
But I after seeing the sales numbers and seeing how well Black Myth Wukong has been performing, I'm kind of starting to change my mind on that. And not saying that they're not a great developer and they wouldn't deserve Game of the Year, but they have to get these games on different systems. I still don't think the Final Fantasy VII is going to be on Xbox anytime soon, but I do think that we're going to see an announcement for 16 on Xbox here next week.
All right, I guess we can move on to the next topic. That being Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered for PlayStation 5 and PC appears on ESRB. A new listing on the Entertainment Software Rating Board website has revealed a Horizon Zero Dawn Remaster is in the works, expected to launch on PS5 and PC. Originally reported by the gaming news outlets back in 2022, this is a solid confirmation of its existence, but offers no release date. There was a PC version of the game released back in 2020, but it is believed that this new remaster bring the original closer to parity with its sequel, Horizon Forbidden West. With LEGO Horizon Adventure game releasing later this year, the much speculated on Horizon multiplayer game, and projects across other forms of media, it seems PlayStation are betting a lot on Guerrilla Games IP. Horizon Zero Dawn was released back in 2017 and instantly became one of PlayStation's biggest IP. Playing as Aloy, you are thrown into a post-apocalyptic United States in the 31st century. Giant mechanical dinosaurs roam the world. Zero Dawn was revered for its gameplay and stunning graphics, and of course, it's not a PlayStation game without great narrative and characters. We are not likely to hear more about the game until PlayStation hold their next State of Play event, but it's safe to say that Horizon fans have plenty to look for. Yeah, I would say so. Thoughts?
I absolutely love Horizon, and I will absolutely be a schmuck and pick this one up because it's one of my favorite series. But I will also ask the question, why does it need to be made? I realize I just said that I'm going to pay for it and then I'm going to buy it. Totally contradicting what I just said.
Why did
But
there need to be a remaster of The Last of Us?
that one,
Money.
yeah, exactly. When it comes to The Last of Us, it's a completely different story. They had that series that are coming out. But here, with this situation, I think their thought pattern was we're going to re-release the Zero Dawn on PlayStation 5 at the time that Netflix releases their Netflix series. So they started getting to work on it. That Netflix series has been scrapped. It's not happening anymore. And I'm happy that it's not. Um, the way that they were wanting to do it, I think it would have been a really hard way of bringing people in. And I feel that though the people that would get drawn into the game, it takes that element of surprise away by giving them the backstory too quickly. Um, it's it's one of those things of you're putting the pieces together and then you realize what happened in the past to set off the events in the future, or current, and taking that element away. It's like watching the prequels of Star Wars before you watch the original trilogy. So it's kind of that effect. So I'm glad they're not doing that Netflix series, but I also don't see them having a reason to re-release this. And I think they had the same approach for this series as they did for The Last of Us. Re-release it with this series to draw new fans in because people are going to want to play this game and get involved in the world once the series is out. Now that it's not happening, they've invested time, they've invested money. Just keep going and release it. To me, that makes sense. But yes, it does come down to money. They want their money back. Am I going to buy it? Yes. Should it be made? No. Am I still going to buy it anyways? Yes.
Yeah, and like I said, unfortunately, I couldn't get into the game. That's just kind of my own personal taste. I felt that I just lost interest too quickly for it. But not to take anything away from the game because it is very much a critically acclaimed game. It's one of their biggest IPs, as the article said, to the point where they were planning on making a Netflix series out of it. So, yeah, I'm kind of in that same boat. Like I don't understand the need for having to have it remastered. Only 2 years, or I guess this would technically be 7 years. But yeah, I mean, I'm not the one making those calls at the very top. But I mean,
I also have a question for you too. Who owns Crash Bandicoot right now?
it's those guys that do the stuff.
Yeah.
Uh,
Bottom line
uh,
is they need a new mascot, and I think they accidentally stumbled on one with Astrobot, which, by the way, anyone that hasn't picked that game up yet, do it. It is phenomenal. I've platinumed it. It's great. I think it would be a great mascot for PlayStation. Uh, but I think that they also kind of want to have someone a little bit more relatable. And Aloy is fairly relatable. She's a great character, and she's not a sad dad. Um, but it's worth playing. It's a great series, but I don't think it needs a remake. Anyways, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. I think it's just that they're looking for a mascot.
yeah, and it was Naughty Dog that did Crash Bandicoot.
That's what I thought.
Right, but then it went to Activision, and Activision now has Crash with Xbox.
Yeah.
So it's now owned by Xbox.
She's not a sad dad, so wouldn't that make her a mopey mama? How to get in there?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's a lot behind that story, and it's basically the world was destroyed, and the AI that was involved with restarting life on the planet needed to recreate its creator to have it to be repaired, and that the person that created it was Aloy. I know that's a big spoiler, but guess what? It's been out 7 years. Get over it. But it's great. I love that series. I will replay that game every few years, or that series every few years, but I don't think it needs to be remade.
All right, on to our final news story of the evening, and it is to a game now that everyone wants. Star Wars Jedi 3 confirmed to be the final game in the series. Electronic Arts has confirmed that the next game in the Star Wars Jedi series will be the final one that Respawn Entertainment creates. Not long after the release of Star Wars Survivor this past year, Cameron Monaghan, the actor behind protagonist Cal Kestis, revealed that Respawn was already in the process on a third installment. Since then, details on what is merely being dubbed as Star Wars Jedi 3 have been few and far between. Now EA has broken that silence just a bit and has given some initial info on Cal's next adventure. Speaking during EA's Investor Day 2020, company president Laura Meal said that the next game in the Star Wars Jedi series will be the final chapter. Few other details were shared about the upcoming title, likely because it's still very early on in development. The only other thing that was divulged was the lifetime sales of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and Star Wars Jedi Survivor have nearly topped 40 million. Sorry. Over 40 million Star Wars fans have connected with Cal Kestis and his arc of becoming a powerful Jedi, Meal said. Respawn is working hard on bringing the final chapter of this thrilling story to players. Ryder, I know you're going to be all in on that one when it comes out. Yep. Hook it to your
Put
veins.
that so you're right into my veins, man. Honestly, the one thing I'm really looking forward to, well, I shouldn't say looking forward to because there's absolutely no confirmation on whether or not something like this would happen, but the one thing that I'm really hoping to see is that once this particular arc of the Jedi games is finished, maybe we'll finally be able to get to see Cameron Monaghan on the live action screen in Star Wars shows and or movies.
That would be awesome.
And
That would be great.
And the reason why they haven't done it yet is because they don't want to add any sort of spoilers to the third Star Wars game saying whether or not he lives or dies. Because if he appears in later shows, whether it be in, the Rey Skywalker series or if they develop something in between, then it's obvious that he lives, and that kind of, spoils the ending of the new Jedi game. So I'm really hoping that once the final scenes, once the game is released, not necessarily that's the big thing is they once the game is released, then Cameron Monaghan can come out and say hey, by the way, or actually maybe not necessarily right when it's released, maybe give it like a month or two so that people have a chance to play it, and then at the very end of it all I'm going, hey, by the way, guess what, I'm in a new Star Wars movie, that sort of thing.
I have a better idea for you. What if they actually used him and gave him his own spin-off series on Disney Plus?
I mean, I'd be okay with that too.
I want to say this. First of all, and I can't believe I'm going to say this. Ubisoft, please, for the love of God, start taking notes when it comes to this series. My God, this is this story was fantastic. I'm very excited to get my hands on this. Leg Rider, I've platinumed both games. In fact, I actually platinumed the first one twice because they had a free update on PlayStation 5. And I said, screw that. I'm not going to reload my game. I'm going to replay it and actually earn that platinum trophy again for the second time. I know I don't have to, but I can do it, which is exactly why I'm going to do it. So I'm very excited for this next one. The rumor is as well that this game has actually been in development for a while. So we may actually hear about this game a lot sooner than we're expected. I'm going to go on a limb and say we may see an announcement trailer as early as the Game Awards in December.
That's what I'm.
That's my
like a
prediction.
teaser trailer with basically just like a splash screen or something like that. And
Yes,
yeah,
just a little quick cinematic trailer, kind of like what they did with God of War in 2016. Kratos walking into the doorway, something to that extent.
yeah.
That's what I'm expecting with this, or not expecting, but what I'm predicting. And I'm going to say we're probably going to be looking at maybe 2026 release. I'm thinking the turnaround time's going to be fast on this one.
I hope not. I hope they let it. One of the things that we like to say here on this podcast is, let it cook.
Let it cook.
Yeah. Maybe early 2020, early to mid 2027 would be my guess.
I'm wondering the way that, like, and this is why I'm saying that this is why I'm saying 2026. Survivor came out last year. I've got the feeling that as soon as they finished up the motion capture with the last one, that they just started with this next one. Right from that point on, they just continued going.
They could have.
And that's why I'm saying that I think I'm gonna say 2026 is just because I don't think that they really stopped production of this, and it would have been a very, very smart way of doing it.
Yeah, I agree.
I guess it's time to power down the system, put the controllers away, because that was the last news story for this week. So I want to thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this week as always. Let's go through the outro here. Rider Pride, where can we find you?
You guys can still find me over on Twitch, twitch.tv/RiderPride639, where I am streaming as much as I can. Unfortunately, I don't really have much of a static schedule now with my current work rotation. But we just completed a stream today where I'm doing some charity work for the Create for Sick Kids, which is raising money for the Sick Kids Hospital based out of Toronto, Ontario. We had some fun with that one, including eating some very, very spicy bean boozled jelly beans. So yeah, if you guys want to see more of that, that's where you can find me. You can also find a bit more of my content on highlights and clips over on my YouTube channel as well.
And when he says today, he meant September 18th. Now this is coming out on the weekend. But either way, Agent Maverick, where can we find you?
So right now, you can find me on the new Geek Corner. I'm still working through a couple of reviews, and I will be dropping a surprise review here next week. The Plucky Squire dropped on PlayStation Plus here yesterday, and I've actually been playing through that. I did wrap up my review here for Star Wars Outlaws and Space Marine 2. I actually got those ones out of the way and got those ones completed. But I'm working on the Plucky Squire right now. There's not a whole lot of movement right now because I'm going to be working through my backlog as well. So after I'm done with the Plucky Squire, the next game I'm actually going to be working on my backlog is Cyberpunk. I have not played that one to completion yet, so that's the one that I'm going to be working on next. And then, of course, October 8th, there's going to be Silent Hill 2 and the Diablo DLCs that are going to be coming up. So I'm going to be working on that in the future as well. I'm sure that I might be able to convince Ryder to do a stream for the new Diablo DLC. Maybe we can kind of do a co-op one there or a co-stream. But we'll discuss that in the future. But I'll post that on my Facebook page at the new Geek Corner.
And you can find me over on my YouTube channel. All the links will be in the description down below, where I am uploading every Monday and Friday, doing some stuff on Saturdays as well with the Final Fantasy 16 demo. Oh my god, that last demo, that was a trip. Last playthrough was a trip, especially the ending. Well, not the ending because I haven't beaten it yet. I got a game over screen for the first time, but I'm gonna try again with third part. But I upload every Monday and Friday. I've got a couple videos, long form videos coming out. I got a new top 5 coming out too. One of, not you, Ryder, but one of my favorite streamers did a playthrough of Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. and I'm counting down all my favorite moments from her stream. So I'll have that up not too soon, but
Wonder who that could be.
it's not who you think it is.
Oh, okay.
She hasn't finished it yet, but yeah, that's and you can also pick up your copy of my novel Shade Falling over on Amazon. You get it through their Kindle e-reader or on paperback. So I want to thank you all for joining us for this episode of the podcast. Like we said, no episode next week.
No, I'm working overnights next week, guaranteed. So
for sure, we have a new episode. But we will be back in 2 weeks with more gaming news. And until then, for Rider Pride 639 and Agent Maverick 86, I am the Irish Bandit. Have a great week, and we will see you again on the next level. Take care.
Bye, everyone.